Hello, dear students. How are you? I think you all are safe and sound. This is Hasina Islam, lecturer, Department of English, Tongi Government College, and this lecture is for the students of honors third year. Today, I am going to discuss on Victorian poetry, and from Victorian poetry, I am going to start with Robert Browning. I think you all know Robert Browning. Robert Browning is one of the famous poets of the Victorian age, and he is very well known for his writing of dramatic monologue. First of all, I will discuss, I am going to say something about Robert Browning. Robert Browning was born on May 7, 1812 in England. His father worked as a bank clerk and was also an artist, scholar, and collector of books and pictures. His rare book collection of more than 6,000 volumes included works in Greek, Hebrew, Latin, French, Italian, and Spanish. Much of Browning's education came from his well-read father. It is believed that he was already proficient at reading and writing by the age of 5. That is, he was only 5 at the time he could read and write. A bright and anxious student, Browning learned Latin, Greek, and French by the time he was only 14. From 14 to 16, he was educated at home, attended to by various tutors in music, drawing, dancing, and horsemanship. At the age of 12, he wrote a volume of Byronic verse. In 1825, a cousin gave Browning a collection of Shelley's poetry. Browning was so taken with the book that he asked for the rest of Shelley's works for his 13th birthday and declared himself a vegetarian and atheist. In 1828, Browning enrolled at the University of London, but he soon left, anxious to read and learn at his own pace. That's why he left the university. The random nature of his education later surfaced in his writing, leading to criticism of his poems' obscurities. And we know Robert Browning is well known for his dramatic monologue. Can you remember what is dramatic monologue? Dramatic monologue is a type of poem, and in this type of poem we find a single speaker. A single speaker speaks and with some silent listener or listeners. That is, in a dramatic monologue, it contains a silent listener or more than all listeners, and the listener or listeners remain silent throughout the poem, and the listener's presence is revealed in the speaker's comments. And this type of poem starts abruptly. That is, it contains an abrupt or sudden beginning, and it also has some psychological tension. Okay, and it is different from soliloquy. Okay, because in soliloquy there is no listener. The speaker speaks himself or herself. Okay, so he was well known for his dramatic monologue, and nevertheless, the technique he developed through his dramatic monologues, especially his use of diction, rhythm, and symbol, are regarded as his most important contribution to poetry, influencing such major poets of the 10th century as Ezra Pound, T.S. Eliot, and Robert Frost. After reading Elizabeth Barrett's poem in 1844 and corresponding with her for a few months, Browning met her in 1845, and they were married in 1846 against the wishes of Barrett's father. The couple moved to Florence, and where they continued to write. They had a son, Robert Penn Browning, in 1849. The same year, Browning's collected poems was published, and Elizabeth inspired Browning collection of poems, Men and Women. It was published in 1855, which he dedicated to her. Now regarded as one of Browning's best works. The book was received with little notice at the time. Its author was then primarily known as Barrett's husband. That is, he was not so well known, and he was only known as Barrett's husband. Elizabeth Barrett Browning died in 1861, and Robert Penn Browning moved to London soon afterward. The Browning Society, this is also important. The Browning Society was founded while he still lived in 1881. Okay, in 1881, the Browning Society was formed, and he was awarded honorary degree by Oxford University in 1882 and the University of Edinburgh in 1884. Robert Browning died on the same day that his final volume of verse was published in 1889. That is, he was died in 1889. And Robert Browning is very famous, and I think you will enjoy Robert Browning's poems. And today I will start with his poem, My Last Duchess, and I'm going to start this poem, and of course you have to listen to this poem very carefully. This is a very nice poem, and in my next class I will discuss about this poem. So everyone, please listen to this poem very carefully.
Frau Pandolf's hands worked busily a day, and there she stands. Well, please you sit and look at her. I said Frau Pandolf by design, for never read strangers like you that pictured countenance, the depth and passion of its earnest glance. But to myself they turned, since none puts by the curtain I have drawn for you but I, and seemed as they would ask me if they durst how such a glance came there. So, not the first are you to turn and ask thus. Sir, 'twas not her husband's presence only called that spot of joy into the Duchess' cheek. Perhaps Frau Pandolf chanced to say, her mantle laps over my lady's wrist too much, or paint must never hope to reproduce the faint half flush that dies along her throat. Such stuff was courtesy, she thought, and cause enough for calling up that spot of joy. She had a heart, how should I say, too soon made glad, too easily impressed. She liked whate'er she looked on, and her looks went everywhere. Sir, 'twas all one, my favour at her breast, the dropping of the daylight in the west, the bough of cherries some officious fool broke in the orchard for her, the white mule she rode with round the terrace, all and each would draw from her alike the approving speech, or blush at least. She thanked men, good, but thanked, somehow I know not how, as if she ranked my gift of a 900 years old name with anybody's gift, who'd had you the skill in speech, which I have not, to make your will quite clear to such a one, and say just this or that in you disgusts me, here you miss or there exceed the mark. And if she let herself be lessoned so, nor plainly set her wits to yours forsooth, and made excuse, e'en then would be some stooping, and I choose never to stoop. Oh, sir, she smiled no doubt whene'er I passed her, but who passed without much the same smile? This grew. I gave commands. Then all smiles stopped together. There she stands, as if alive. Will't please your eyes? We'll meet the company below. And I repeat, the Count your master's no munificence is ample warrant that no just pretence of mine for dowry will be disallowed, even though his fair daughter's self, as I avowed at starting, is my object. Nay, we'll go together down, sir. Notice Neptune, though, taming a seahorse. Thought a rarity, which Klaus of Innsbruck cast in bronze for me.
So, have you listened to this poem carefully? Oh my God, the end of this poem. In our next class, I will discuss on this poem. Okay? Till then, Allah Hafiz. Have a nice day.